look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Oh, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leach. You are listening to the live broadcast of Time for Hemp all around the world on timeforhemp.com and on iTunes and on iHeartRadio and Tumblr and SoundCloud and who all knows where else. I mean, we are all over the internet. 2.5 million people globally hit their bongs, their pipes, their vaporizers when they hear the word joint on the big broadcast and take time for hemp. My joint hosts today, Lynn Mathre and Al Byrne, and I are having a great joint conversation with a friend that we made last week. We had some technical problems last week, so we had to let Bob Jorden go, but he has come back this week on our joint broadcast here at Time for Hemp. Lynn and Al.
Well, thank you very much, Casper. Thanks for having us again, for having Patients Out of Time, giving us this opportunity to teach folks about the medical use of cannabis. And we do appreciate that Mr. Bob Jorden has come back to join us. Let me just give we'll start all over. Now, last week never happened if some of these listeners are repeat from last week. But Bob Jorden is a Vietnam veteran. He and I have been friends for about 10 years now. I've known his wife professionally much longer than that. She is Kathy Jorden. She is a remarkable cannabis patient in that she has ALS, better known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And for those that don't know, if you've been afflicted with ALS or diagnosed with ALS, you probably have less than 5 years to live, maybe just 3. Well, Kathy has been diagnosed with ALS now for some 27 years. I understand she's outlived 4 of her doctors, and her secret to her success is no secret at all. It's the medical use of cannabis. However, Bob's going to be with us today. I'm sure we'll get to ALS, but Bob is a combat veteran of Vietnam with the United States Army, a very proud veteran, and he is leading the charge, what we in the military call Walking Point, in the state of Florida, for all veterans, not only Florida veterans, but all of us in the United States that are being denied the option of using cannabis as a medicine because of federal policy in conflict with the Veterans Health Administration policy. So, Bob, good morning, and thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for the opportunity and to talk about this issue, which is very near and dear to my heart, and you well know that. And we're starting this veterans thing, 100kstrong.net, and we're going to start on November 5th, starting out in Melbourne, and we're going to whistle stop throughout the whole state, the local VAs and the outreach clinics, and talk to as many veterans as possible. And I appreciate you saying I'm down here Walking Point, which is true, but I'm not by myself. We have a lot of other veterans, but what we need to know, and we need is veterans, all veterans. I'm a Vietnam veteran, but this is for the younger guys, the older guys. All veterans should have the opportunity to use this, and as you well know, in states where it's legal, they can use it. In states where it's illegal, we can't use it, which is Florida, of course. So we're trying to change that to the best we can. And I had a friend of mine to try to make a point is for us combat veterans, and veterans in general, we all know about medics, and they, you imagine getting stepped on, we used to call them booby traps, now they're IEDs, and a medic coming up, and before he treats you, ask what state you're in. So that's a pretty good mental picture of what we're up against here. I didn't fight for Florida. I fought for the United States of America, and I can't use this plant. So we got to get that changed, and we need our brothers and sisters throughout. Whoever is listening to this program to get in contact with 100kstrong.net and help us and get this done. And I think if we can get it done in Florida, I think that's going to be the turning point, the tipping point, so to speak. That's my opinion, but I think that'll break it loose for everybody else. I really do.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I live in the South. Mary Lynn and I live in Virginia, and we are moving permanently to Florida. So we know the South, and there isn't one state in the South which is even considering the therapeutic use of cannabis for its citizens except Florida, and they're giving it a real consideration. And the numbers are quite high. I remember seeing a poll taken almost 2 years ago now among older voters. I think they were 60, 65 or something like that to be qualified as older. I'm sorry, folks. But something like 80% or 82 or 3% of the people thought it was a good idea that medical cannabis be introduced to Florida. And what Bob is talking about, folks, is we have a federal policy that says that cannabis is not a medicine. And then we have a federal policy that says it is. Now, let me explain that. The law says it isn't. The federal policy that I say where cannabis says it is a medicine is the Veterans Health Administration of the United States, the largest medical community in our country. And they have declared by directive twice now, most recently in January of 2011, that cannabis is a medicine and it should be viewed as such by the doctors and nurses that work for the Veterans Administration. Unfortunately, the directive has its limits, and the limits have to do with the law. And the law is that there are 20 states in D.C. that have a medical cannabis law. So the Veterans Administration in those 20 states and D.C. allows the use of cannabis as a medical option for veterans as long as they do all the right things with their paperwork from the state. And they are treated as veterans, and the cannabis medicine is integrated with their other treatment. If you are a veteran, as Bob is in Florida, I will be in Florida, and I am, and my wife is in Virginia, and one of us were to use cannabis therapeutically and seek help from the VA, we would be escorted off the grounds. So what Bob and his cohorts are doing in Florida is going to VA hospitals and hopefully the media and you, and especially veterans or anybody that's got a yellow ribbon on the back of their car, and you go to 100,000strong.net and help us correct this injustice, not just for the 1.8 million or 6 million vets in Florida, but the millions of vets in those 30 states and all the U.S. territories. The Veterans Health Administration, doctors and nurses are willing to help us. They want to help us, but they can't help us until you help us, until other vets help themselves. So vets, help us. I mean, that's the thing. We need it. We need it from everybody to go to this webpage and tell the government to help us. How are you doing down there, Bob? What are you guys going to do directly? Tell the people where you're going in Florida.
Well, we'll be in Melbourne, outpatient clinic it'll start on November 5th, okay, and we're going to Vera outpatient in Melbourne. Then on the 6th, we'll be in Orlando. The 7th will be in Bay Pines in St. Pete. Then we'll be in the villages there. There's a little place we'll stay. And then we're going to be up on the 9th. We should be we'll be in the capital, Tallahassee. And then we'll have a picnic on November 10th in Niceville. And then on the 11th, we'll be in Veterans Day Parade in Crestview, it's called. And we're doing all these things because what we're having while we need people to get involved, and it's been my experience, I've been going to the VFWs and American Legion, it's like they're waiting for somebody to show them what to do. And we need other veterans to talk to other veterans, and you'll find out that there's a lot of, we're an aging population, and there's a lot of interest in this. But when we go to Tallahassee and lobby, when I go to the top, the governor, you can't get no bigger than that. We talk to him. They want to know why they're not hearing from veterans. And I said, you are hearing from veterans. They said, no, we got to hear from the organizations. But along with that, if they hear from enough veterans, they will move on this issue, because it's been my experience in Tallahassee. Veterans right now are a lot different than when me and Al and Mary Lynn got home. I mean, it's different. They're holding very high esteem, and they want to do as much as they can for them. So let's see if they really do want to help. And we do the best we can. And I don't know. Well, they will move when the people move them.
Al, are you there?
You there?
Al?
Yeah, let me make a comment here, if I may, about the veterans of foreign wars and the American Legion. I'm a member of both. I have, Mary Lynn belongs to the American Legion. I have contacted those two organizations repeatedly by phone and writing, et cetera, et cetera. And here's their answer on why they aren't going to help veterans, even though they are in the business of helping veterans. You see, they have regulations, and they have rules. And the rules are that everything has to start at the bottom. Bob has to go, and we're going to hear this story about Bob has started this, but Bob has to go to a post, and the post has to recommend that veterans should be getting medical cannabis in Florida and other states, and the post has to go to the state, and the state has to go to the district, and the district has to go to the national, and all this can take 3 years. And in the meantime, the commander of the VFW sits there and lets suicides go at 22 a day for veterans in the United States. And the commander of the VFW sits there and says, it's regulations, dude. Well, I was an LT in Vietnam, and I broke regulations to help my men. And I think the commander of the VFW, the commander of the American Legion ought to what I say is get back their testicles. Remember who they were and who we were together, and do something like Bob. So, Bob, what did you do when you addressed a VFW and an American Legion group?
Well, when I approached them, when you do these things, Al and Mary Lynn know real well that when you're an activist and do what we do, and you never know what kind of reception you're going to get from the people. I mean, just as much as we believe in, there's them there that don't, and we went in there, and they gave us a microphone and let us talk, and they gave us a standing ovation. I mean, I was shocked that they were so supportive, and I don't know why, but like I say, it's just like they're waiting. There's a large veterans community that wants to move and doesn't know how until somebody shows them. And that's what we're planning on doing. It's been my experience that once they know it's all right to talk about it, they see somebody else doing it. And one of the main points I stress to these guys, there's a fallacy out there. They think if they use cannabis, they'll lose their benefits. They won't lose their monetary benefits. In even states where it's illegal, they may refuse a medical treatment. And this is a quick story. This just happened to me. I was seeing my psychiatrist, and I was talking to him, and we got talking, and he can't write me any psych meds. I don't want them anyhow, but, because he said because I told him I'm using this tincture, and it's helping me. He said, well, now I can't do anything for you. I said, well, I don't want you to right now, but under law, he can't now because I was truthful with my doctor. So it has affected me personally. First time, but there's nothing to do with your benefits. Veterans got to stop being afraid. All veterans know as soon as you get a piece of paperwork, a survey or something, first sentence in there is, this will not affect your benefits. Don't be afraid. So it's time to stand up, and boy, we've all stood up for this country. Now it's time for them to stand up for us. And I think people will do it. It's just that they got to lose the fear. Put it behind them. Put the fear behind them and join us and get involved in this thing, and we can get this thing changed.
Yeah, we just got to. I thought you were going to have a break.
You're right. It is 17 minutes past the hour, and that is the time that we normally go to break. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Then we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then after that, we're going to come back and take a whole lot more time for hemp.
Good Green River, big fat don't be much sweeter. I don't clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
Georgia.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
You are listening to Time for Hemp Live all around the world at timeforhemp.com and on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio. It is Monday, Healthy Mondays, with my joint hosts, Lynn Mathre and Al Byrne, and we're having a joint conversation with a joint friend of ours, Robert Jorden. But before we get back to the conversation, I'd like to point out to people we have a brand new website, and it is amazing. We had a professional webmaster develop the website, and we ask that you go and check it out. Time for Hemp, at one time, the timeforhemp.com website, was a website that when you went to, it was a little campy, little cheesy, little fun little website that you could go to and enjoy some animation and cartoons and videos and music, and it basically was just there to promote my hard work here at Time for Hemp Live, the 1 hour broadcast, and put a spotlight on all my joint hosts that work so diligently with me each week, and to make sure that certain that people did not overlook the brilliant guests that make this series so spectacular. That was the purpose of timeforhemp.com. But we've grown. Many of you know, those of you who don't know, we are no longer a radio show. We are now a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week broadcasting network. And Time for Hemp has evolved from being the Time for Hemp Live radio show heard all around the world into the Time for Hemp Broadcasting Network, with a team that are ready to let the whole world know how important it is to end prohibition. So please, let all your friends know that it really is Time for Hemp, and we are a broadcasting network with a brand new site that can be shared and found on Tumblr, iTunes, and iHeart, and all around the world when you and your friends want to get together and take Time for Hemp. Lynn, Al, thank you for allowing me to promote our hard work here on the new broadcasting network.
Well, congratulations on that, Casper. I think it's because you do great work, and people do need this education. We're thrilled that it goes out there and reaches so many people. Wanted to just get back to the veterans and cannabis and why we think it is so helpful for veterans. There's enough research out there on post-traumatic stress, and as Al said earlier, 22 veterans commit suicide a day in the United States. That is unforgivable, the fact that we're not allowing them the medicine that for many of them says it makes the difference. The understanding of the endocannabinoid system shows us how our body tries to protect us from horrific trauma, physical trauma, mental trauma. Combat is not anything a normal person wants to go through. Soldiers come back changed forever. Difficulty sleeping, difficulty fitting in, difficulty just feeling normal. And cannabis is something that just seems to help calm them down. The other common problem we're seeing now with vets, especially from Afghanistan and the Iraq vets, are traumatic brain injuries, commonly called TBIs. But again, cannabis can be very helpful as an anti-inflammatory, a neuroprotectant, an antioxidant. It literally can help decrease the damage in the brain from these serious injuries and let veterans function better. You've got other problems such as loss of limb, spinal cord injuries, other kind of injuries that leave them with chronic pain, often chronic nerve pain, neuropathic pain. Cannabis is excellent to help with that, as opposed to the opiates that might be prescribed that to cover a lot of the pain for that, it takes large doses, and vets feel drugged. They don't feel right. The medications themselves carry a lot of risks. Included in them are unintentional overdose. So cannabis is so helpful for so many problems that vets experience. And Al and I, years ago, did counseling with Vietnam veterans. And at that time, that's when we really learned a lot from them. So many of them using cannabis just to get by and using it illicitly. So this 100kstrong.net website, the program that they're launching in Florida to increase that awareness to veterans that cannabis is a good medicine, but also the awareness about the fact that VA directive is out there. if you're a veteran in a state with a medical cannabis law and you get a recommendation from a civilian physician, then the VA is to honor that. So all the vets in these states with laws have access to this medicine, or can have access to this medicine, legal access, and not be punished. But again, as we're saying, vets in Florida, vets in Virginia, any of these other 30 states without the laws, either have to use it illicitly or not use it at all. And the other option then is a lot of pharmaceutical medications that cause a lot of problems for veterans. Post-traumatic stress is not an easy thing to medicate. There are so many symptoms. Generally, psychiatrists, physicians start prescribing several medications to try to help with the different symptoms. And then those medications have interactions. And the vet is just left feeling not right at all in the head. So this is a really, really serious issue. And I think that's what Bob's finding out is he's talking to vets. That was a great thing that he literally got a standing ovation. And I think the idea was a lot of them know this or they hear it. They might have tried it themselves, but they're afraid to say anything in public. And that we want to stress again. You will not lose your monetary benefits as a veteran because you use cannabis. For that reason, it is important you let your congressman know how important this medicine is for you. With that, again, I just want to see if Bob.
Well, I'd like to shift a minute, Bob, if we could, to your wife, Kathy. Again, folks, Marilyn and I have known Kathy a quarter of a century, and frankly speaking, I think Kathy's in better shape now than when I met her a quarter century ago. I really do. She moves much better. She speaks well. She's full of energy, and she's just a wonderful person who has, as I've said, survived when other people don't. And there is a law in Florida that Bob's going to explain it called the Jorden Medical Cannabis Act, and it's a bill. Yeah, it's in doubt, and it's in doubt because apathy among our citizens, among our veterans, among our politicians to be leaders. Bob, what's going on in the House and Senate in Florida with this bill, and what's their problem?
Well, the Senate bill is called 1250. It's Kathy Jorden Medical Cannabis Act, 1139 in the House, Kathy Jorden Medical Cannabis Act. And what it is like you said it, it's apathy, and the politicians are saying, well, it's too big a bill, it's too hard to work on and all that stuff. And I tell them, well, it wasn't too hard for me to get on an airplane and go to Vietnam. Do your damn job. Stop trying to duck your responsibility. They want to do the easy stuff up there, and but they won't. I can't stress this enough. They won't hear. They won't move until they hear from their constituents, the people in their districts, and then they pay attention to veterans. And if the veterans reach out, and 1250 in the Senate, 1139 in the House, and tell them they want these people to act on these, and let them know that they'll start doing something. But it's an uphill battle. But I think once we get these veterans involved and they see this 100kstrong.net thing and take off like we think it's going to, they're going to have to pay attention. They're going to have to pay attention, and then helping this thing will help Kathy. So and as far as Kathy's out shopping right now. She's going to go to Colorado. This lady does more in a wheelchair than most people do. She's a top activist throughout the whole country, and she's supposed to be dead 27 years ago. So I mean, she's an inspiration, and you can't argue with her success. She's also a cancer survivor. She used the oil, the RSO, and her body ejected a 13-pound cancerous tumor. So people got to understand how serious this really is for us. I mean, this is life and death for us, literally. And people just got, if they would think of a woman that the best way I can explain Kathy's condition, to have somebody wrap you up in an ace bandage from head to toe and try to be that way all day. And she just barely uses her hands, but yet she does things that it's unbelievable. She has more energy than I have. And there's one thing that saved her life, and it's cannabis. It's cannabis. And when we talk about Kathy, she's the president of Florida Can, and I got to give a shout out to Florida Can on here too. FLCan.org has really, really done a lot of work on this. Jody James and David Jones and done a lot on this website. So we couldn't do it without their support. And the Florida Cannabis Action Network is very well. That's Kathy's organization. So you want to support her, you can support FloridaCan.org too. So we need people to get involved. And if you think, like Jody James says, when she gets up in the morning, she says, "Oh man, I'm afraid Kathy's going to outwork me today." And it's the truth. She outworks me. So I mean, if she can do it, just pick up the phone, do something to help us. And she's an amazing lady. And it's all because of cannabis.
Yeah, well, of course, the politicians would call her an anecdote. But she's a walking, talking, moving around anecdote, if there is one, and the professionals would call her an N of one study. And that's another part of the language problem that we're all facing. And listen, I know that for the listeners, we're concentrating on post-traumatic stress with veterans. That's because that's what this show is about, and what Bob's caravan of vets is going to be about, going from VA hospital to VA hospital and VFW Hall and American Legion Hall, from one to another, to bring awareness of what's going on, this unfair treatment of vets. But post-traumatic stress affects lots of people that aren't veterans, child abuse folks, and people that have been in serious automobile accidents, construction accidents, or any number of kind of traumas. I mean, think of the ways you can get hurt, and it not only includes those that are hurt. Post-traumatic stress includes three groups of people that can be affected very negatively, and those are, of course, the person hurt. If you're shot by a bullet, you're hurt, and you have post-traumatic stress. But you also get post-traumatic stress by being the guy that shot somebody. And then the third way is to be a witness to this horrible act. The medic that has to come along and put this person back together in the middle of a mud puddle. All of those kinds of things are equivalent to a really bad auto accident. Or one of the things we all saw on TV on the summer a couple of years ago was a stage collapsing in the wind on a bunch of people, in front of a bunch of people. That's post-traumatic stress. The results of something like that, a post-traumatic stress, and cannabis helps it all. Just doesn't help veterans.
One thing
I'd like to point out, too, that I want folks to know that internationally, I know of Canada, Israel, and Czechoslovakia, all allies, of course, of the United States in the various places we fight, now uses cannabis for TBI problems with soldiers that are hurt in that way. Our conference, a Patients at a Time, has conferences every 2 years, accredited academic conferences. Doctors should be aware of these conferences. They should also be aware that they can learn about medical cannabis by going to medicalcannabis.com and taking a link over to the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine's website, where Patients at a Time has accredited CME-approved lectures available for your medical education. But one of the speakers was from Israel, from their Department of Health, and he confirmed that Israeli soldiers treated with cannabis quickly after head injury do better than not being treated with cannabis for the reasons that Mary Lynn spoke of: neurological protection, anti-inflammatory, etc. And why this information which has been passed, I know, to the National Hockey League and the National Football League, and every high school coach that plays has a responsibility for a hockey player or a football player under his control as a coach, isn't interested in the concussion helping cannabis plant for his and her athletes is derelict in my mind. We know it helps head injuries, Coach. You better find out about this, the NHL, the NFL, etc. And now we're going to go back to veterans. And I'd like to, again, Casper's a veteran, but Bob and I and Mary Lynn are Vietnam veterans. And I want to read something to you why we're doing this in Florida. I think the author of these statements is a presently serving U.S. Army Staff Sergeant by the name of Bellavia. I do not know him. I'd like to. Apparently, he is the recipient of numerous combat medals and is the vice chairman of an organization called Vets for Freedom. He's also the author of a book called House to House, an epic memoir of war. Sounds to me that he was there. He spoke recently to the annual conference of the American Legion, in which he said, and I quote him, and this is a little bit long, but it comes to the point. He said to the assembled legionnaires, who, by the way, are veterans who served over the last whatever, it doesn't matter, all the way back to World War II and in between. He said, the greatest generation is an 18-year-old kid who can't even spell the country he was drafted to serve in. The greatest generation would turn on the radio and told that they were baby killers by popular culture. They were told by Hollywood that they were ignorant for doing what their country asked of them. The greatest generation was a generation that stood shoulder to shoulder and protected Iraq and Afghanistan veterans from the same unwashed, ignorant classes that choose to put the soldier behind the foreign policy. The greatest generation is a generation of veterans who were treated with dishonor and shame and made sure that their sons and daughters would never be treated like they were treated. Thank you, Sergeant. Bob, why do you do what you do?
Wow. Boy, that brings back memories, doesn't it? That's why we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. That's what gets me up in the morning. I mean, I always wear a Vietnam veteran's hat. People think I'm trying to draw attention to myself. Whoa, I was in Vietnam. That's not it. I'm here to help other veterans. I'm here to help everybody. And I was kind of hesitant in putting this veterans thing out there because I kind of felt like I was being braggadocious or something like that. But that's not it. It's coming clearer and more clear to me now. That says a lot. That's what drives me. I'm here so no other veteran has to go through that and be told when you come back from a combat situation, we recommend you don't wear your uniform. You know, we recommend you don't wear your uniform. So, I mean, people today don't understand that. We do, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure the veterans today don't have to ever face anything like that, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure they got access to the proper medication. Boy, I went off on that, but I can't help it. You got me stirred up on that one.
That's the point. To get not only you stirred up, that's good, but to literally get the listeners stirred up. I want to take advantage of this time to let people know the Drug Policy Alliance is holding a conference in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, at the Sheridan West on October 23rd to the 26th. Bob said Kathy's going out there. Kathy Jorden will be out there along with Jody James. I'll be out there as well. And I want to let veterans specifically know that there's some issues coming up. On October 24th, Jody will be on a panel talking about medical marijuana, what next, and they're going to be talking about the 100kstrong.net program that's going to be launched. On the 25th, Friday, at 2 o'clock, myself, Michael Kravitz with Veterans for Medical Cannabis Access, and some others will be talking about what's going on with veterans. And we've got a vet study we want people to know about. And then on the 26th, there's an open meeting. So if you can't come to the conference, this is a call out to any veterans in the Colorado area who on Saturday at 1:30 at the Sheridan West could come to open forum. Mike Kravitz will be heading it, but it's for veterans, building a national network. So we'll go on about talking about this, not only the 100K strong, but that event, that idea can be replicated in any of the other states. But we need these veterans to get on board and basically help our brothers and sisters, everybody helping everybody to get this medicine available right away. Bob, you want to go ahead and make sure people know the websites for Florida Can and the 100K strong?
Yeah. You go, Kathy's organization, FloridaCan.org. Okay, that's our office in Melbourne. That's where Jody's out of. Jody James, executive director. Kathy's the president. I'm a veterans advisor, and we need all the support we can get on that, and that's where we're launching this from. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I think we're talking about veterans. We need to reach out to the veterans' families also, and non-veterans. Help a veteran. This is for everybody. So I mean, and you go to, like I say, FloridaCan.org, and you can see what we're doing there. Then the 100kstrong.net. That'll tell you what we're doing at, where we'll be, and through November 5th through November 11th throughout the state of Florida. And all I can say is we really need your support. If you can't be there with us, then support us in doing this, and so we can get this message out. And another thing, you don't need a special invitation. You don't need any credentials when you go to these other veteran, these VFWs and stuff. Just stand up and start talking. Talk to other people. Kathy has a saying, just talk about it. And you'll find out that more people are interested than you would think. So just talk about it. That's Kathy's new saying. Just talk about it. And we need your support. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't. And the only way anything will change is politicians will only pay attention when there's enough of us talking to them. So we need your help.
And you're absolutely right. We do need the support of everybody all around the world to help us as a hardworking group of people to raise the voice of the marijuana movement. And so we ask people to not only share our new broadcasting network URL, timeforhemp.com, with all their friends, but also get out into your communities and get active in an organization that is dedicated to ending prohibition. And if you can't find an organization, by all means, make it a point to start one and get the community involved with you to help make this plant available for medical use and for industrial use all around the world. Mary Lynn, Al, you want to give a shout out to the website that you work so hard on that also allows people to get accredited information that they can apply to their university studies?
Right. The website for Patients Out of Time is www.medicalcannabis.com. And again, we really want to urge people, get your physician, get your healthcare professionals to take the courses. They need to be educated. If they can't come to our conference, if they can't make it to that conference also will be online for continuing medical education credits. So, there's no excuse. Docs can sit at home in their home or at their office and take this course. Watch the different presentations of researchers from around the world talking about the science of the endocannabinoid system and the science about the use of cannabis as a medicine. Also want to put one more shout out to the American Cannabis Nurses Association. If there are nurses out there who are interested in cannabis nursing, it is a specialty nursing. It literally is so pervasive. The endocannabinoid system in the human body, this is a special knowledge base. We've got a lot of nurses interested in this, and that's at cannabisnurse.org. You can find us. Looking for more and more nurses to join us. Those in the states where it's legal, they actually get to practice with using this wonderful medication, natural medication. Those in the states without the laws, we need you to help educate your legislators, to help get the laws changed, to help make it available for patients. Again, it's, Patients Out of Time speaks, the name speaks for what it's all about. These patients need medication. They need it now. The stories we continue to get day in and day out on the internet from people writing in are just sad. It's just a crime that people need this medicine and they're stuck in a state without a law, or they're stuck in a state and they don't meet the criteria that some politician decided, can be used. Cannabis is limited to certain conditions, and somebody just might not meet that condition, yet really benefit from the medicine if they could have it.
Well, it's medical terrorism.
Thanks again, Casper, for giving us this opportunity.
You're welcome, and it's medical terrorism, if you ask me, to keep patients from the medication that they need most to help them deal with their horrible, horrible ailments and can make their life so much more nice and bearable. With that said, we're going to be cutting out of here now. Tomorrow is Tuesday with Canadian Tuesday. All of our friends up in Canada, we want to say thank you and salute them. And KDK distributor Kelly Kristen is the joint host. He'll be telling you how you can get a free vaporizer just by tuning in and listening to us here at Time for Hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yes, it's time for him. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 bales of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, time for help! Yeah!
Hi, I'm Scott with Flex Your Rights. We talked last time about some of the ways that a police encounter can get out of hand and even go horribly wrong. And a couple of people asked the same question in response to that video, which is, what do you do if police say they smell marijuana? And this is actually a really tough question, and for reasons that I'll get into, it's something that you might want to learn more about, even if you don't actually use marijuana. The truth is that you don't have a lot of options in this situation. But let me break it down for you, and I'll just try to be as helpful as I can. The reason this is such a big issue is that the smell of marijuana by itself is considered probable cause to believe there's a crime going on. So as long as police smell it or claim that they smell it, in most situations they can automatically search you. And unfortunately, the courts trust police officers to be honest about this, which creates all sorts of problems. And that's why it's something that can affect you whether or not you're a marijuana user. The smell of marijuana is something that the officer might bring up as an issue to sort of manufacture probable cause after you've refused to search. And so that's why it's a big deal. And so let's talk about some of the ways that you can protect yourself from having this happen to you. First and foremost, we want to eliminate the possibility that you're actually running around reeking of marijuana. Believe it or not, a lot of police officers aren't liars, and they aren't going to just say that they smell pot if they don't. So most of the time when an officer claims that they smell marijuana, it's because they actually smell it, and that's the reason that they think there's something going on. That's why they want to search. So first of all, we have to eliminate that factor, and that's going to reduce your odds of getting jammed up considerably. Above all, this means that you aren't ever smoking marijuana in your car. Smoking in the car is just the best and most efficient way in the world to get arrested for marijuana. We get emails at Flex Your Rights every day from people who got in trouble, and 9 times out of 10 it had something to do with smoking in or around a vehicle. That's just the number one way that it happens in my experience. And there's no reason for it. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're so impatient that you can't, drive for 30 minutes without sparking something, well, then you're going to hate being subjected to a weekly urinalysis when you're on probation after getting busted, inevitably. So cool it with that for your own good, please. And beyond that, if there's anything in your car that might smell like marijuana, for example, a bag of it or an apparatus or what have you, keep that stuff stored away and sealed up. Better yet, keep it out of the car. It really shouldn't be there. Unfortunately, making sure your car doesn't smell like marijuana might not be enough. It's really just the beginning. If the officer becomes really suspicious of you, they can lie or just imagine it, even when it isn't there. And for you, that can be just as bad as the real thing, because it means that they now believe they have probable cause to go ahead and search the vehicle, or at least that's what they're claiming. Another important thing is just to make sure that you keep your car clean in general, because when police see a dirty car, they think of drugs. So if your car is clean, the officer is just a lot less likely to even start with you. And again, this is a preventative measure, but it's important. It really does make a difference. Along these same lines, remember that police profile like crazy. So if you're running around looking super cool all the time, they're going to notice you. I would never recommend that you tone down your style. It's a free country and you shouldn't be afraid to be yourself and be awesome. But also just be aware that if you have a distinctive look or a flashy vehicle, it just means you're more likely to get harassed. It's bullshit, but be ready for it. I get emails all the time from biker dudes and people like that who don't even do drugs, but are getting pulled over and harassed and searched by police all the time for dope. It's just a dumb stereotype, but it's also the reality of how our laws are enforced, particularly under the war on drugs. Think about what you have with you, for example. If you do fit a profile or if you have a history of getting harassed by police, you factor that into your decision-making about whether to make yourself vulnerable to a criminal arrest. Now, the last thing, and this is perhaps the most important point of all, is that you always want to assert your rights no matter what. Keep in mind that when police say, for example, that they smell marijuana, it might just be a trick. They might just be trying to judge your reaction or scare you, and they're looking for sort of these verbal or nonverbal, cues from you, your eyes darting around or your breathing heating up and these kinds of things that police officers deliberately try to provoke you to create those reactions when they're suspicious. It may not be their intention to do a full search of the vehicle unless you give off some sign of guilt. And so things like making references to marijuana, you look stoned, you smell like pot, these things could just be a trick. And so you don't want to panic at that point and waive your rights. You always want to refuse the search. If they're asking to search the vehicle, you always want to say no. And if they're claiming to smell marijuana, you want to respond the way that an innocent person would respond. And hopefully you are innocent because you haven't been smoking pot in your car. So you say, officer, I don't smell anything. Or, officer, whatever you're smelling, it didn't come from in here. It may or may not stop them, but it gives you a better chance of getting out of the encounter. And most importantly, if you do flex your rights and ultimately you're searched illegally, if you're arrested as a result of illegally obtained evidence, all of these things can be challenged in a court of law. Now, probable cause derived by something like marijuana odor is hard to disprove in court. It's very hard. But an officer who, for example, would make a claim like that dishonestly may very well have a track record of making the same claim every time they pull somebody over and the search is refused. And so you got to keep in mind that there's a track record here, and a good attorney can get in there in a court of law and maybe even win your case. So don't give up. That's the important thing, is to sort of be prepared for all of these possible outcomes. And this is a particularly tricky situation, and one that sort of lends itself to a little bit of corruption and dishonesty on the part of police officers. But if you're ready for it, and if you make the right choices, if you keep your car clean, if you assert your rights, even this situation is something that you can have a chance of driving away from safely. And finally, please do check out our website at flexyourrights.org. We have a detailed frequently asked questions page there that we've spent years putting together, so you'll find a lot of interesting information. And our videos, of course, are all available for free here on YouTube. But our excellent instructional videos with live actors and cops and all that stuff, those are also available on DVD for a small donation through our website. So if you can afford to make a donation and you'd like to get the DVD, we really do appreciate your support. So thanks again, and be safe out there.
You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. The only broadcasting network dedicated to ending the global war on drugs on iHeartRadio.